Good afternoon and welcome to the second in the Old Blues talk series. Please bear with us today. We hope we have the technology sorted out as usual, but you never know. If you have any questions throughout the talk, do type them into the Q&A box. Leave it open. Tracey's going to be asking you some stuff along the way as well. So with no further ado, thank you, Tracey.
Thank you very much, Gina. I'm just going to start sharing my screen before we go any further, but welcome everybody today. If you do see my screen, please let me, say something in the Q&A function just so that I know. Or Gina, can you see my screen? My screen's visible?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, perfect. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today. So thank you once again for the invitation, Gina and team. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you about leveraging the power of networking. For those that know me, they know that this is a topic that I'm really passionate about. And just to give you a bit about my background, so my parents came to the UK in the 1980s, where they came to seek political asylum from Ghana. So we were definitely from kind of, an underprivileged background. They were raising 5 children in the UK, but education was really the lifeline for our whole family. So I went to CH, my brother and sister went to CH, and I can truly attest that it changed my life and the trajectory of my life. I came to CH in 2002. As a DEP and spent 2 years there. I was senior Grecian in 2003 to 2004. So that was the year that Her Majesty the Queen visited the school. So I had the privilege to host her, which was a wonderful experience. And I guess kind of for me, like that was my first taste of leadership. So again, like I'm forever indebted to CH. So to come back and be able to impact the community, I'm really grateful for that opportunity. So before we go any further, I would love to just have an idea of who is in the room. So please let's use the Q&A chat. It's going to be a very active, lively, interactive session as well. And I just want to know who's in the room. So if you are an Old Blue, it would be great just to know kind of the years that you were at CH, and then also what house you were in. And you can also feel free if you wanted to add, what you miss about being at CH. And if you're currently at the school, just let us know kind of what house you're in, and that would be great. So if you could just populate that into the Q&A, that would be really great. Okay, so the chat, sorry, I think you have to use the Q&A function, yeah. Okay, so we've got Jonathan, Thornay and B, 87 to 94. Okay, great. Ollie Sayers, 2000, 2007, so we're probably in school around the same time. And also please put anything that you miss from being at CH. Anybody else? Okay, so we have parents as well in the room, that's great. Old Blue, no, miss the sports, yeah. The busy sporting, not an Old Blue, I have a son, okay. Okay, great. So sports. Okay, great. We have some parents on the line. That's awesome. Yeah, so we have somebody that said they were at CH for a brief 2 years, but it changed their life. Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. Campus. Esther, currently in Grecians. Okay, great. So we've got a good mix in the house. March, I forgot about marching. Yes. I wasn't in the band though, but yes, we used to march for lunch. Okay, great. Okay, so we've got parents. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so no, thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, I completely forgot about the marching. Okay, well, that's great to hear. Thank you once again. And then just if people can also, so for those that are maybe kind of in, they've left the Old Blues, if you just put in the chat kind of where you work, what industry you work in, I think that would be also very helpful just to know, again, who we have in the room. So if it's finance, if it's creative, like please feel free just to put it in the chat as well. Okay, great. I'll keep an eye for that. I will keep going, but I will keep an eye on the chat. So I think the objective of today is to really just share some practical advice, but also hopefully give people the opportunity to think about how they can use their networks a bit more strategically to really achieve kind of their professional goals. So that's just something that just to bear in the back of your mind. I think oftentimes when we go to networking events, we're often more focused about, the fact that it's going to be new people, or, we're going to have to, go out of our comfort zone, but it's just such a great opportunity to be able to, get information, share information about yourself. And I hope the structure of today will give you the opportunity to really see the benefits and inspire you to network more and leverage those networks. And I love the fact that we have parents on the call, we have teachers on the call, we have current students on the call, and we have old blues on the call. So thank you. So we've got somebody working in the media and entertainment industry on the call. That's Jonathan and Oliver Sayers working in data analytics and finance. That's great. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. So today, I think I want to use the basis of this conversation to share my career journey, because I think there are some lessons that I can share with you that hopefully will be useful, and then give some advice just to when it comes to how you should be approaching networking in general, and then leave some time at the end for some Q&A. So just to start, so I started my career in the city. So I started as an investment banker at debt capital markets, and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I remember when I was at CH, I enjoyed French, I enjoyed economics, and that led me to study economics with French at the University of Nottingham. And in Nottingham, what I soon realized is that everybody that studied economics applied to do banking. And I kind of followed that route and ended up in banking. And that was, a great, 5 years of really kind of grounding me as an individual, as a professional. I learned that I could function on very little sleep. It was very, a lot of work, but actually laid a lot of good foundations that kind of set me up for my future career path. And I think kind of the main lesson I learned from being in the city, starting my career in banking, was that it's really important to study yourself and be confident to take risks. And the reason why I say that is that I started off in banking, and within 2 years, I realized that actually banking wasn't really for me in terms of where I was sitting. And I was on this quest to try to break into the HR, the HR space, and people didn't really understand why I wanted to do that. So after doing a lot of kind of internal work, it didn't quite work, and then I started a family. So I went on my first maternity leave, and when I came back, for me, that was really the thing that prompted me to take a risk with my career. So an opportunity came up. I wasn't doing that role before. I had never, done a role within HR, but I remember, reading the opportunity and seeing what was required, and knowing my strengths and my skill sets, my passions, and thinking this is something that I could do. And I think that's really important to note. So for those on the call that are maybe early in their career, or you're about to start university, I think it's really important that you start thinking about what your strengths and your weaknesses are. So I remember when I was in university, like I said, everyone applied to do banking, and it was like there were only a few professions in the world. So it was either engineering or finance, or doctor, lawyer, and that was it in my mind. But I soon realized when I stepped out into the real world that there were so many different professions that could be pursued. So I think early on in your career, when you're thinking about opportunities, make sure you get to know yourself first. And I always tell people that when I look at my career journey as a whole, I never necessarily had this was the career path I was going to take. Like, I didn't know that I would spend time in the charity sector and then go back into the finance industry. But what I did know is that I took it upon myself to really know myself. So some great questions that you should be able to answer as you think about what career you want to work in is, what type of environments do I like working in? What are you passionate about? Who do you know that are in maybe industries that may be of interest? So start being very reflective about your experiences, about what you bring to the table. And actually, when I think about my time at CH, actually a lot of the things that I did at CH I started doing in my career, if it was leading or creating things out of nothing. So it's really important that you study yourself and be confident to take risks. So I went from city, moved into the charity sector where I effectively took a 50% pay cut, but I knew that this new role was in line with my aspirations and my passions. And when I went into the charity sector, I was basically helping students from ethnic minority backgrounds, low social income backgrounds, and I was helping them break into the world of finance. So I was able to use my skills from working at City to be able to do that. And that was an opportunity at SEO London where I thought I would be there 6 months. That ended up being 6 years, but it was a great opportunity to learn, grow, build things, create things out of nothing. And it was a great opportunity. And the second lesson there, just from a networking perspective, is that it's really important to remember that when you're working, you never know when your next opportunity to come. And so actually, I learned that my current job was actually my next interview. So I stayed 6 years at SEO London, had 2 maternity leaves there. When I came back from my third daughter, I remember having a conversation with my client at the time, and we were catching up. I'd just come back from maternity leave, and one of the things that she mentioned in passing was that she was looking for maternity cover, and I took it upon myself to ask her, send me the job spec, and maybe I might find somebody that could be well suited for that opportunity. And when I opened up the job spec, it actually looked like something that would be quite a good fit for me, myself. So I put myself forward, and we had a conversation, and they made an offer. And the reason why I tell this story is that I think this is a great opportunity of the power of networking at play. So when we network with people, it's really important to think of ways you can genuinely add value to people around you. And had I not asked that question in terms of when she made that comment that she was looking for somebody for her to share the job spec with me so that I could be helpful, I probably wouldn't be in my current role now. So I think the lesson I learned there was that, it's really important to make sure that you are attentive to people's needs. And I always tell people that when I went to the interview, it was just a brief conversation, but it wasn't really an interview. I had been working with that client for 12 to 18 months prior. So they had actually already seen the value of my work. So it was more just a case of whether or not I wanted the role. And actually what I had been doing before I went on maternity leave, that was effectively my interview. So if you forget everything about this webinar, remember that your current role could be your next interview. And then I guess kind of when I was on maternity leave, I set up Opportunity Central, which I am the founder of, and I'll talk a bit about that later. But basically, as you progress through your professional career, you are effectively building your brand. And I think it's really important that you recognize that this could be the opportunity for you to pave way for having a future client base as you kind of grow in your brand. So anytime people have interactions with you when it comes to thinking about a networking mindset, it's always important that you think about what is their experience when they have interactions with me, and making sure that as much as you can, you ensure that that is a positive one. And then I mentioned that I moved to Lazard, which was from SEO London. So that was my client at SEO London. I had a conversation with them. They offered me a job. And there, I remember that, when this opportunity came, it wasn't something that I was looking for. But I think with all the other opportunities, it's about, seeing how opportunities can add value to where you are in your professional journey. So the reason why I took Lazard is that I had never done an HR role in-house. So they are an independent investment bank, and I had never kind of sat in-house doing HR. I had left City, I was in the business, went to a charity, then I moved to Lazard, and this was going to plug that skills gap. So anytime you are looking for opportunities, think about, what is this giving me? And I think the more you know yourself, the more you're able to answer that question. And I remember when I went to Lazard, the interview, it was a 12-month maternity cover. They specifically told me that it would be no longer than 12 months. Everybody that goes comes back. But I remember going in there just thinking, how can I add value? And actually after the 12 months, they decided to create a role for me where it was extended to 6 months, and they've recently made me a permanent offer at the firm. And I think that really just speaks to, again, the networking mindset of being somebody that always adds value. And again, I will kind of share later what that means to be a person who can add value. So because this session is all about networking, I wanted to just get your thoughts and ask if you could just put in the chat what your thoughts are. So what percentage of open roles do you think are filled through networking? So this is, you know, maybe you see a role on LinkedIn, you see a role on Indeed Jobs, but you know, what proportion do you think is filled through networking? So if you can just populate your percentages in the chat, that would be great. 40%, 60%, 10%, 45%. Okay. Any other? So 60% is the highest, 10% is the lowest, 70, 60. Okay, I'll wait for a couple more to come in and then I will disclose. 50, 75. Okay. Okay, great. So we've had some that are close, but 50%, 75%. So actually, the answer is 85%. So 85% of open roles are actually filled through networking. And I think if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Like if you get a personal recommendation of somebody that you know, who you know you can vouch for, you're probably going to trust that more than maybe you reading somebody saying, you know, all the reasons why they're an amazing fit for the job. So networking is actually a crucial part of, you know, your ability to navigate and get new opportunities. And I think this is, you know, this is true of when you think about business opportunities or new clients. Like networking is a fundamental and really important part. So I think it's something that, knowing that it's this high, I think it's something that we need to embrace more. And I think particularly when maybe you are from, you know, for myself, I was from a background where I didn't have the luxury of having, you know, parents that were well connected when it came to, you know, professional networks. So this is something that I've had to really build meticulously over time. And I can attest that actually networking has done wonders for me. Like if, you know, when it came to setting up my business, when it came to, you know, even navigating career moves, like being able to pick up the phone or tap people on the shoulder has been so important in helping me navigate. So I think network is really important. And actually it's something that as students, you can start building now. So even the people that you are in your year, like that's going to be a powerful peer network for you in the next 5, 10, 15 years time. I left CH back in 2004. And one of my greatest regrets is that actually I should have definitely kind of built that network more, stayed in contact with that network more, because actually now we are, you know, dotted all over the globe, and you know, this is a network that you can really kind of tap into. So networking is super important. The other statistic I wanted to share with you is just about this concept about, you know, getting new jobs. So it says, you know, research shows that people were 58% more likely to get a new job through weak ties than strong ties. So many a time, you know, it's our friends and families that we talk to a lot about, you know, maybe our aspirations or things that we want to do, but actually, you know, you're probably more likely to get an opportunity from an acquaintance. And I can really attest to that. I think, you know, since, you know, in the last 6 months, there's probably been about, you know, a good handful of people that I've had a passing conversation with them. And as a result, you know, when I caught wind of job opportunities, I've kind of put them forward and they've now got job offers. And that was just because we had a conversation and I now knew what it is they wanted to do. So it's really important that you remember this. So even parents that we have on the call as well, like, you know, things like, you know, your colleagues that you work with, or, you know, people in your network, making sure that, you know, you are speaking to them about things that maybe your children want to do or that you want to do, I think is really important. It's an important practice just to cultivate, because it can really help open doors of opportunities. So yeah, so make sure that, you know, you are talking to not just your friends and family about your career aspirations, but also your acquaintances, and that circle is, you know, being expanded quite strategically so that you can you know, you can get wind of more opportunities. So I just wanted to give advice before I kind of go into some Q&A. But I think, you know, when you think about networking, it's really important to be creative. So when I talk about creativity, I think not being linear. So I think when we think about, oh, I need a new job, a lot of the times we think, okay, let's go to a recruiter, go to an agency, maybe look on jobs boards. But actually, being creative involves talking to a lot of people, thinking about, okay, I want a new job, but who else can I get in touch with? And I think being able to segment your network, so be it talking to alumni groups or, you know, people that you've worked with in the past, like going back and turning over those old stones are really important. So think outside the box when it comes to your networks. And I think, you know, when you think about your networks are anybody that you are connected to. So your personal networks, your professional networks, your gym networks, your church networks, your, you know, whatever network you belong to, it's really important that you make sure that they're well connected and you're connected to them professionally. The second thing I would say is it's really, really important to talk to people. So in the slide before, I spoke about, you know, the importance of speaking to your acquaintances, because then you arm them with information. So I think it's really important that you have conversations. One of the things that I do on a regular basis is that I have ad hoc conversations with people that might not necessarily be in the same line of work with me, maybe we're in similar industries, but just literally catching up with them, understanding, you know, what's happening in their industry, speaking to them about my kind of future aspirations. For those people that know me, I always have an idea that I'm working on. So I found that just being able to talk openly to people is a great way for people to, you know, have information they need, so that if something comes up, you know, you are front and center and they can think of you. The other thing is around LinkedIn. So I think LinkedIn is a really, really powerful tool that I think is just not used enough. So it's really important that, you know, you are on LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile is updated. I think those are kind of the number two things that are just really important. But in addition to that, LinkedIn is a really powerful tool to be able to find your voice and find your networks. And when I say find your networks, I mean, you know, find people that should be in your network that are not necessarily in your network. One of the things that I found is that, you know, sometimes you may be interested in an industry that maybe your immediate network don't have exposure to. And because of that, you are unable to take the right decisions or maybe know the right path to take. But if you go on LinkedIn, you are potentially connected to millions of people, and people that will know the path and will be able to give you advice. So I would really encourage you, if you don't already, to really kind of take LinkedIn very, very seriously. And then the final thing I would say is when it comes to, you know, networking, is this concept around just doing it. So, you know, I always say, like, when it comes to networking, it's a two-way relationship. So it's not just what people can do for you, but it's also what you can do for other people. So it could be in the form of introductions, or it could be in the form of you've seen an opportunity and you want to raise it to somebody. And I always encourage people that do it immediately before life gets in the way. So, you know, if you've said that you are going to introduce somebody to, you know, maybe a colleague, you know, make that email introduction as soon as possible, or as soon as you remember, rather than waiting, because then it will never get done. And I think when you do this, you really do become a person of value. And I want to just break down this whole concept of, you know, how you become a person of value. So the first thing is around being visible. You know, I think sometimes when we, you know, have something, or, you know, we know our strengths, sometimes, you know, we know them, but we kind of keep to our corner. But it's really important to be visible, because when you're visible, people can get benefit from what it is you have to offer. And I'll give you a practical example of this. So, you know, for instance, I would say that me being visible, one of the things that I love to do is that I love to make introductions to people. Like, I love to help, you know, people find what they're looking for. And, you know, Opportunity Central, the business I set up, ultimately it started off as, you know, just sharing information with people from a broad, you know, range of backgrounds when it came to career opportunities. So I took that value that I had and I made it visible by setting up a a website whereby if you go on the website, you can actually see that if you're interested in technology, these are all these amazing companies that help you break into the technology sector, or if you're interested in medicine or law or banking, whatever the case may be. But I took the value that I had and I made it visible. So it's really important to not be afraid to put yourself out there. The second thing, when it comes to being a personal value, is that you have to be able to ask questions. Like, be somebody that is inquisitive. I think sometimes we only ask questions if we think we can have direct benefit. But my current situation of being employed at Lazard is an example of where I asked the question, and as a result of that led to a job offer. She said she's looking for a maternity cover, and I said, is there a job spec? Please send it to me. So sometimes, just being interested and asking questions might lead to an opportunity for you or somebody within your network. So it's really important to ask people questions. And even if you don't think you may even be able to help the person, just being armed with that information, you never know later down the line where that may come, into being helpful. And then I would also say, listen with an open mind. So, again, you may not think you might be able to help somebody, but listen with an open mind. And when I talk about listening with an open mind, I think it's also about stopping and thinking. And I think people don't do this enough, where you just stop and think, and you ask yourself, could I possibly help? Or could this person possibly be helpful that I know? And even if you don't know the exact answer, I think it's always worth making that introduction, or it's always worth pointing that person to the right direction. And I'll give you a really good example of this. So I remember one day I was in the supermarket, and I had a conversation with a lady who was in the shoemaker section, where they did repairs, and she mentioned something in passing that she's looking to get an apprenticeship doing sewing. And I remember thinking, well, I help people get into banking. There's no way I can help you. But then I just stopped and thought for 1 minute, and I said, well, I guess I do often go and get, I go to a seamstress at times when I do have events, and she will kind of, do my clothes for me. And I remember that she had once said that, she used to work on the set for Strictly Come Dancing. And I remember just thinking, maybe possibly she could help. And that was just a fleeting thought that came to my mind. And I remember leaving the Morrisons and getting to my car and just dropping a quick text to the lady to say, I met a lady and she's looking for an apprenticeship. Could you possibly help? And she came back saying, sure, connect us. And I did. And I remember, I followed up with the lady, I exchanged numbers, and it so happens that this lady actually took her on to do an apprenticeship. And I remember that was a lesson to me, that sometimes you never know what the power of stopping and thinking can do for somebody else. But when you make that introduction, if that leads to success, you will forever be part of people's stories. And I think people that crack networking, they are the ones that seek to be memorable people in people's stories. That lady in Morrison's will probably remember me. If her career kind of goes in that trajectory, she'll probably forever remember me of that lady that I met randomly, and she connected me, and this led to this opportunity. I may forget. So that's what I would say. When you're thinking about how you can add value, seek to be a part and parcel of people's stories. Seek to help out where you can, because that will always yield a benefit back to yourself. It will help you build your relationship capital. The other thing I would say when it comes to becoming a person of value is making sure that you understand yourself. So everybody on today's call has something to offer, and I think it's once you know your strengths, you can then put yourself forward for opportunities where you can really add value. And I think that comes down to the point of really studying yourself. I think that's something that I wish I would have known when I was a Grecian, to really know my strengths early on, really know what types of environments I really flourish and thrive in, because that dictates what you put your hand up for, what you agree to do. And it's never too late to kind of start that process. And there are lots of online tests that you can take to help you do that, to help you really know yourself. Because I think once you start narrowing yourself to allocating yourself to where your strengths are, that's when you'll get more you'll be more productive, and it will be easier for you to do certain things. And the last thing when it comes to just being a personal value is around execution. So, I spoke about, the just do it. Where you can help out, make sure you do. If you are able to, network, build a new relationship, do everything you can to really build those relationships. So I just wanted to share this quote with you, where it says, everything you need is a conversation away. And I genuinely believe this. If this was a room where, we could all do speed networking, or, all share our ideas, or, what we're looking for, I really think that, so much could be found just within this group alone. We have over, almost 30 people on this call, and I'm sure we have people with common interests, common projects that they're working on. And I think when you think about networking and kind of leveraging the CHR Blue network, I think it's really important to, proactively have these conversations. If, I was to do an exercise now, is there anybody on the call that is actually, starting a new business, for instance, or, anybody on the call that is looking for, a new job, and we were trying to help each other, I think we could achieve a lot just by having that conversation, or being able to establish connections that could be really fruitful if they were to continue the conversation offline. So at that note, I have a few questions for the audience, but I'm also happy to take any questions just around networking, approaches to networking, anything that kind of, you would like to ask, because I think it's a really important topic as we kind of look towards really developing in our professional career. So I'm happy to ask a question while questions are coming in. I would love to just hear from the audience if, is there anybody on the call that maybe you would like to switch careers, one, or maybe you're about to start a new business venture? And if it is, I think just maybe say a few words about what it is, or if there's any particular help that you're looking for, that would be great. And then we can see if there are people on the call that could potentially be of assistance. Okay, so we've got Oliver Sayers, who's about to start data analytics consultancy for a commercial real estate firm. Okay, great. Thanks, Mimi. Okay, so we've got somebody they've taken voluntary exit after 21 years in the same job, and they're looking for a new direction but don't know which way to go. Okay, that's a great question. And one thing I would say there is, I think that it's just a great opportunity for you to reevaluate, about what it is you're interested in, what you're passionate about, and really kind of take a skills audit of yourself, because I'm sure with 21 years of experience, you have a lot to offer. And definitely new perspectives to bring. So yes, I think Caroline, it's a great kind of learning opportunity, but after 21 years, you will have a very rich network. So think about not just people that, your ex-colleagues, but who did you used to work with as well? So who were your clients, or, who were the competitors of those same companies, and being able to build relationships with them will be very important, and just letting people know what it is you want to do. So again, if you're looking for the same thing, then again, articulating that. And again, I think LinkedIn, how are you positioning yourself on LinkedIn? If I were to go on your LinkedIn profile, would I get a good understanding about where it is you're headed? And I think that's the beauty of LinkedIn. I think it's not just a snapshot of what you've done in the past, but you can actually create content, and the way you position your brand on LinkedIn as to where you're going and the types of people that should be in your network. And coaching might be a great opportunity as well for you, Caroline, in terms of just direction, clarity. So yeah, but it looks like there's probably a lot of exciting opportunities ahead. So my daughter has been looking for a holiday job in the food industry, but no one seems to be hiring. how should she navigate her job career hunting? So that's a great question. And I think when it comes to, so yes, there may not be many people hiring, but one thing I would say is that there are lots of companies putting on opportunities that are giving students exposure. And on Opportunity Central on LinkedIn, we post a lot of opportunities. So I'd encourage you to kind of, follow them, follow the LinkedIn page, but also, there will be like a lot of opportunities. So even in the food industry, I work with one of our clients called Salt. They have a program where they're trying to get more people from Black heritage students or Black heritage backgrounds into the consumer goods industry, and they work with a lot of kind of retailers on a mentoring program, normally targeted to people that are in university, but it is worth signing up to them because they have a lot of events. And again, you can find alternative routes to give your daughter exposure, experience, inspiration, so that when the market does open up, she is much more informed and has the confidence to talk about her passion for the industry, or even find out if it's something that she wants to do. So Rowan said he's about to finish his economics degree and he's quite passionate about politics and social issues. That's great, Rowan. And Rowan, to you, I would say, again, just coming back to the whole tips around networking, I don't know if you are on LinkedIn, but if I were to go on LinkedIn, would I be able to see a reflection of your passion for politics and social issues? So again, I would say just making sure that, what you're passionate about internally is also visible externally, so that those people either working in those spheres or, people that are equally passionate can be connected to you and are able to maybe help you get more opportunities. And I don't know if you've had opportunities in those spaces or in those sectors, but I think it's really important to articulate that, and hopefully that will be an opportunity for you to find mentors as well. So I'm one of the 15% who got a job via LinkedIn without using a network. However, my LinkedIn profile and connections have helped me get to an interview. Okay, that's great to so just coming out of a startup and going back into a major corporate. Yeah, that's great, Jonathan. And it does happen, people do get jobs without networking, but I think, what you will find is that even if you see a job posting via LinkedIn, like you said, by having connections, that can even help with the interview process. So just being connected to a broader range of people and reaching out to your network, and you can use networking every step of the way. So even when it comes to before the interview, if you know somebody in the firm, that's a great opportunity to, get more insight, which can increase the possibility of you being able to convert that opportunity. So the more networks you have, or, the more opportunity to network, it's never going to be, there's no downside, basically. So we've got somebody looking to start a blog on personal finance and budgeting, Nemi. So that's great. So again, I guess, and one of the things that I think is so amazing about networking is that anytime I want to do something, the first thing I ask myself is, who has done this before? And I want to have a conversation with them. So again, and it could be somebody that you're admiring from afar, but again, through networking, you can acquire them into your network. Okay, great. So Jonathan was saying that he worked really hard on his network before finding this opportunity. Jonathan, when you say you worked really hard on your network, could you please elaborate what you mean by that? Because I think that will be helpful just for people. So I had lots of team calls with old colleagues, customers, friends. So yeah, so again, networking in action. Great to hear you mention Strength of Weak Ties. Best book I found on network theory is by Albert Laszlo Barabasi, which I can highly recommend. I'm a huge believer of weak ties. I'm working on 2 major real estate museum projects right now, both of which came through people thinking of me of their art guy. LinkedIn is extremely useful. Thank you, guys. That is, yeah, completely agree. Like that strength of weak ties. And I think, it's almost counterintuitive to what we've grown up in. At school, you have your posse, the people, your close friendship circle, and you don't really, think about the weak ties. And one of the things I would say to current students is, your weak ties are the people that you know, maybe they're not part of your friendship group, but you don't, you know, you've been with them in the school like 7 years, but you've never really taken a chance to get to know them. And I think for me, that's something that I really regret, like, you know, being quite insular and maybe not looking outwards and taking an interest in people. And we spoke about this when I spoke about the values, you know, taking time to ask people questions. And it would be great to hear of current students in the call, like how many of you would say that you really know your year group well? Like, you know the skills that lie within like the whole Grecian, you know, the Grecian pool. And if you don't, I would say, you know, for the next year, try to get to know people, you know, more people outside of your friendship group, because, you know, you never know kind of what interest or common interests you may have. So Catherine has said, I was able to get a new opportunity in tech by LinkedIn. They mentioned that my written recommendations from previous colleagues stood out. I would recommend asking your previous or current peers to provide a written recommendation on LinkedIn. That is a fantastic point you make there, Catherine, and I can't agree more. I always ask people to write recommendations on LinkedIn. I think at the moment I have over 50 recommendations, and they've always come in handy, even when it comes to, you know, even you can put them on your CV at the end as, you know, strategic, you know, stakeholder recommendations where people can attest of your work. When you ask for a recommendation, one of the things that I would encourage you to do is make it easy for people to write a recommendation on you. So if you recall somebody you worked with on a particular project, and on your LinkedIn profile, you are trying to portray the fact that you are a great strategic thinker, or, you know, maybe you have great project management skills. When you're asking for that recommendation, don't leave it with that generic, hey, will you write a recommendation on me? Be specific. Will you write a recommendation on me? I'm currently updating my LinkedIn profile. Will you write a recommendation on me in regards to the time when we worked on project X, Y, and Z? You know, in particular around, you know, your thoughts around my project management and my strategic thinking skills, because these are the areas that I really want to portray on my LinkedIn profile. So you're being very targeted about what you want people to say about you. And especially if you know that in that area, they will be very complimentary and they will vouch for your abilities in those areas, but don't leave your LinkedIn profile to reflect something that is basically based on what other, you know, what it's not kind of strategically tailored. So it's really important that you're quite specific and you guide people how you want them to write the LinkedIn recommendation. And obviously that's assuming that they agree with how you want them to, how you're expecting them to kind of position that recommendation. But make it easy for people to write an authentic one that really gives a true reflection of what you're bringing to the table. So Jonathan says, given the lockdown situation over the past 12 months, it's been much harder to maintain wider relationships. For those who are less confident, do you have any recommendations of how you should reach out to your wider network? Yeah, that's a great question, Jonathan. I actually think it's relatively now more easier to jump on, you know, a virtual call with people. And I think when you're that person that is quite proactive in building those relationships, I think you have an advantage because not many people do that. So I would say, you know, if you sit in the bucket where you're less confident, I would say it's almost a muscle you have to build over time. So, you know, it's a muscle. So I think you need to just practice having calls with people. And I encourage, I wrote a LinkedIn article about this, about how to network across your ecosystem. And I would say, even if you can build it, if it starts off with once every 2 weeks, a half-an-hour call where you are having a networking conversation with somebody where you're getting to know them, they're getting to know you. And it could be aligned with what you're trying to do in the future. So maybe you're working on a new business idea, or maybe you're trying to move industries. It could be talking to people in the industry and just finding out what do you do, and, you know, sharing with them some of your experiences, and not necessarily because you think that conversation is going to, you know, lead to a specific outcome, but it's all in the vein of really kind of building your relationships much more holistically. And Jonathan mentioned, but you need a reason to invite them to the call. That is true. So one of the things that, you know, I've written an article about, you know, how you can get the attention of people that should be in your network. And I speak about this concept of listening to people virtually. So a great thing that I find is that, you know, when you look at people's profiles, on LinkedIn, you can see their recent activity. You can see if they've written certain articles, or you can see what they've posted on or what they're commenting on, or and that gives you a flavor of the things that they're passionate about. So connect to them on the level of their passion. I can think about the LinkedIn messages that grab my attention. It's the ones that are citing the work that I've done, or they know that I'm passionate about a certain thing, and that's why they want to connect with me, rather than me going in with, this is a link to my website and this is my latest service I'm offering, would you be interested? So I think it's really important to start the conversation with something that that they're interested about. And this is where kind of your ability to listen to people virtually, see what they're commenting on, see their activity online, and use that to really get their attention in the beginning, and hopefully pique their interest in wanting to get to know more about what you've done. And when you've taken time to also work on your LinkedIn profile, or kind of your online brand, what it does is that when you request to connect, or you want to speak to them, they get to scope you out. And if they see that, wow, this person is really proactive, or this person is kind of they've established themselves as a thought leader in whatever space, personal finances or blogs, whatever it is they want to do, oftentimes that will even increase their incentive of wanting to talk to you as well. So that's really important. Any other questions or comments or pieces of advice? Is there anybody on here that, okay, another thing to consider is continuing education. I went back to university a couple of years ago, and although I didn't necessarily need a new network professionally, I gained a whole new series of networks which are really valuable, as well as the qualification. I've since done further studies at another university in the US, which again added a further network. Yeah, completely agree, Guy. And I think, networks is all about people. So any opportunity to meet new people is an opportunity to grow your network and have value added. So completely agree. And I think it's really about, taking ownership about maintaining those networks. So one of the things that I've done kind of consistently whilst I've been at my new firm is that anybody that I work with or have a conversation with, through my firm, I'm making sure that I'm connecting to them professionally on LinkedIn. So everybody that you know in person, make sure that you are connected to them on LinkedIn at a minimum. Anybody you come into contact with, if you're joining webinars, like these are types of things that you can connect to people kind of professionally. So all your personal contacts, make sure you're connected with them professionally. If you're in your Grecian year, and anybody in your year group that is on LinkedIn, connect to them professionally, because these are networks that in the years to come will really add a lot of value to whatever direction you may want to go. And I think I really want to stress when it comes to networking that it's not only about what people can do for you, but it's also about what you can do for other people. And that's what makes networking so amazing, that it's a two-way thing. So it's not just, oh, I'm investing in all these relationships because I just want to see what I can extract out of it. But actually it's a mindset. How do you develop a mindset that actually adds value wherever you go, that allows you to call upon those networks when you need help? And I think for people that give more than they take in their relationship, you find that whenever you need something, you can always rely on those weak ties to get to where you're going. Because what it requires is that you have strong relationships, and these strong relationships are what advocates you to their networks. And it's those weak ties from where opportunities can emerge, or things can happen. So it's really important to kind of have that mindset of adding value and staying connected to people whenever you encounter them. And what I will do in the chat, I don't know if I can, if I'm actually able, if I can actually, I don't think I can type in it, can I? Gina, do you know if I can put anything inside the chat?
I don't think you can as a panelist. No, you'd have to.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe I will share with you, and maybe you can share with those that attended. But there are a few articles around this that I've written on LinkedIn, just around how you can add value, because I think one of the questions I always get is that as a student, you know, how can I add value to somebody that's really senior? But there's always ways that you can add value, and I think it's about cultivating that mindset. And if you cultivate it early on, you know, there's a lot of you know, that will really help you as you go through university, as you go through your working world, to really kind of make progress in your professional career. Does anybody have any more questions before I go on and talk a bit about Opportunity Central? Okay. So just to, so Opportunity Central, I set this up. This was set up in 2019 when I was on maternity leave. And ultimately, I think it came from a place where, like I said, I was always the person making introductions, like telling people of opportunities. And as a result, I created this resource, which was industry catalog, which was basically meant to help students from ethnic minority backgrounds, low social income backgrounds, find out more about opportunities and how to break into certain industries. So I was working at SEO London at the time, and we helped people break into finance. But I realized that not everybody wanted to go into finance. And actually, there were loads of SEO London equivalents, depending on what industry you were interested in. So we created this resource, which basically broke down about, it covered 8 or 9 different sectors, and had organizations, charities that were set up to help students break into those industries. And if you go on our LinkedIn page, you will see that we kind of share a lot of opportunities, and that's ranging from pre-university, so 16, all the way through to, you know, graduates when they finished university. So yeah, so it started with sharing opportunities. Since then, you know, I do coaching as well in the group format, one-on-one coaching, which is, you know, an extremely powerful kind of talent development tool, and then also consulting on talent programs. So, you know, helping organizations establish successful mentoring programs for students from, again, kind of underrepresented backgrounds, breaking into different industries, and then also because of the network recruiting of diverse talent. So I would really encourage you, like, if you are on this call and you want to be able to continue to add value either to yourself or to your communities in which you, you know, you're a part of, I would really encourage you to kind of stay connected to Opportunity Central. I always say that it's a great way to just practice adding value. You may come across a lot of opportunities that are not of interest to you, but if you were to stop and think for a couple of minutes, I'm sure you could find people that could really benefit or might benefit, and you never know until you put it in front of them. So it's definitely helps in terms of you becoming a person of value. And if there's anything that I've spoken today that kind of really resonates or you're interested in, please do contact me. Feel free to contact me on info@opportunitycentral.co.uk, and also connect with me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn, and more than happy to help where I can. Just on the topic of networking, I don't know if Gina wants to say, you know, a few words about how we as Old Blues can maybe kind of leverage the networking opportunities that are available for Old Blues, should they want to, you know, become better at networking and leveraging those resources more broadly.
Well, all I would say is we do have a website, which is www.choba.org. It is a networking site as well as being an information site, and it's only open to Old Blues. I know we have some parents on this call. It's open to Old Blues, and it's open to the Deputy and Grecian years. So once you've registered on it, you can search for any other Old Blues. We've got over 2,500 now registered on the site. You can message them directly. It does link to your LinkedIn profile if that's how you sign up to the site. So all of that information will download, gives you the opportunity to message each other, to video call each other, and to offer advice to other Old Blues and students as well. So I would encourage anyone that's not registered to register, and also keep an eye, as Tracey said, and update your email addresses and your profile should you move jobs, because that is a little problem we've had, people's details being out of date. There is one question in the box which I'll jump on as well, which is someone's asked if this is being recorded and will be available. It is being recorded. We will release the recordings of all of the talks once the program's finished. So we have another 4. We're doing 1 a week, so we've got another 4 weeks after this one, and then the recordings will all become available. However, what we will do at the end of this is we will put together the list of some of the questions which Tracey's answered, and I will get those links from her, and I will put my own links to that, and we will pop an email out to everyone. I think we've actually lost our Grecian students, because I think at 1:45 they have to go for their lunch, so it will give us the chance to send them this information as well.
Ina, before we head out, I just wanted to give a piece of advice for parents on the call, because I think you can definitely play a role in just helping your child cultivate that kind of networking mindset. So I think a very simple exercise is just, testing their awareness. Do they know, what, the people, the adults in their life do? Like, I remember growing up and not knowing what anybody did, or, asking the questions, but encouraging them to have those open conversations about, okay, what do you do? How did you get into that? And, so really getting them in terms of the value piece to start asking people questions. And from a young age, that can happen. So I think that's really important. And then just practice making introductions, but allowing them to really drive that relationship. I always say that a lot of times I get, calls from, aunties in, our community saying, oh, help my child get a job. But it shouldn't be that, they're calling me, it should be the individual. So really encourage your child to keep, going out and being proactive in, having conversations with people, because that will really help with their confidence and their ability to network. Thank you. I think
someone's asked for that website address again. It's choba.org, so choba.org. If you go to that, you can register, and then it opens up into all sorts of wonderful things. The email address which the link for this talk has been sent from is also my email address. So if there are any other questions or you want any of this repeated, just drop me an email back from one of those emails.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. And I look forward to connecting with you all on LinkedIn.
Fabulous. Thank you ever so much, Tracey. Thank you for your time. And I will get in touch with you so that we can put something together to send out. And thank you everyone for joining today. We do have another talk next week, which is about gin, so completely different. All the details are on the website, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.